Part 318. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3179. Thursday Lang glanced at him and said, "You've robbed others of their fortunes, would they not want to kill you?" Sitting between the two of them, he sighed deeply. Cutting people's money is like killing one's parents. You see how powerful Mr. Yang is, with such a good family background. If he cut off their wealth, they still send assassins kill him. Every time Chu Yulang thought about this, his head sweated, he shivered, stretched out his hand to rub the goosebumps on his arm, and said to the two of them, "And this broken fortune is in your hands, do you think they hate you?" He used his own example, "I have been selling tea to the grasslands. If one day someone stops me, refuses to sell it to me, and robs all my buyers, I will definitely hate them. Zhou Man and Bai Shan. Of course, I'm not going to kill them." Seeing the strange eyes of the two of them, Shu Yulang immediately explained, "If you don't keep the master here, you will have your own place. But I only make a few money from the tea." "How much money does the salt field in Jiangnan make?" He lowered his voice and said, "I heard people say that most of our official salt in Dajin comes from the south of the Yangtze River. Think about who doesn't eat salt in this world. How much salt is eaten in a day, how much does it cost?" "Bai Shan, it's not that powerful. Other places also produce salt, as well as well salt. There are also some salt fields in other coastal areas. The Jiangnan salt field accounts for about a quarter of Dajin's salt at most. But this is the most concentrated, and most of the salt in other places is self-sufficient, such as Qingzhou. Several counties in Qingzhou get their salt from Bihai County. Basically, they don't have any extra for takeout. Occasionally, they can sell a little bit to the nearest Kizhu. Therefore, compared with the Jiangnan salt works, which can not only supply the entire Huainan Road, but also supply nearly a quarter of the prefectures and counties in Dajin, the former Bihai County is far behind." After thinking about it for a while, Shu Yulang couldn't figure out how much it was. Anyway, he thought it was quite a lot. "Does this mean that 1 out of every 4 households eats salt from the south of the Yangtze River?" Bai Shan nodded, "Almost." "That's also very profitable," said Thursday Lang. "Now you have earned all this money. How many people's money is this blocking the way?" "Bai Shan, I didn't earn it. I didn't lose much. Anyway, everyone thinks it's you," said Thursday. "I used to think it was good to be an official. Is there anything more powerful than being an official in this world? Except for officials who are bigger than you, no one can do it. Bullied you. Bullying doesn't matter. Everyone is an official in the same dynasty, and they have some affection. You are both smart. Others may not be able to fight against you, but I didn't expect that if they couldn't fight, people would directly use a knife." A bit of sweat on his forehead, he said with lingering fear, "You don't know, I heard that Master Yang was assassinated every few days in Jiangnan, and even the tea you drank might be poisonous. Lord Yang, what should I do if I turn around and kill you?" In the past, they fought openly and secretly in the official circles, but Shai Zuolang felt that it was nothing. His sister was popular, and both of them were smart. Those who fought openly and secretly could not fight against the two, but now. Thursday Lang was a little worried, looked at the two of them and asked cautiously, "If you are willing to resign at this time?" Bai Shan did not speak. Zhou Man asked him directly, "There are bandits on the road from the capital to Xiaozhu. You are likely to be robbed when you pass by. Are you willing to give up that trade route now?" "That must not work. How many years have we traveled to open this trade route, and we are familiar with the heavy rain side. Zhou Mandao, Bai Shan and I are unwilling. How can you give up when you encounter a little setback?" She said, "And if Bai Shan and I are not officials anymore, who will protect our caravan? Believe it or not, turn around and you can't even do the medicinal herb business." Bai Shan nodded, "Only when Zhou Man and I are still in the officialdom, they don't dare to fight against you. If they want to fight, they will fight with us. But if we both retreat, they will definitely beat the underdog. I'm not a dog, Shu Yulang muttered, but he still understood what they meant and couldn't help sighing. Forget it, I won't go back to the capital, and tomorrow I'll go to Longqi to bring everyone back. Let someone make a few rooms for me in the back room, I will take the guys to live in. There are many people, and we are not afraid of assassins. Joe man, it's not necessary. Fourth brother, what are you doing? This is the backyard of the county government office. During the day, there are yamen officers and guards at home. By the way, the princess and Yin or both live here. The guards they bring are all good. Do assassins dare to come? Thursel Lang's eyes lit up when he heard this, and his heart felt a little more at ease. Bai Shan continued, and this is Qingzhou, which is far away from Jiangnan. This is my territory. Can I still be bullied by others on my own territory? Chu Hulang slapped his thigh. Yes, this is your territory. Alas, Mr. Yang just had bad luck, and he was transferred to Jiangnan. That is someone else's territory. No wonder he was always assassinated. How wonderful Xiaoshu, let me tell you, Lord Yang has a lot of prestige in Xiaoshu. I know, Zhou Man interrupted him quickly. Fourth brother, are you still sleeping tonight? We have to go to the yamen tomorrow. Let me feel it. Shu Yulang tilted his head to look at the sky, and after a while, said to the two people who were looking at him, I'm not sleepy right now. Bai Shan and Zhou Man had their heads lowered. What should they do? They wanted to hit someone. The three sat for a while, and Bai Shan tentatively suggested, I heard that drunk people sleep well. Hearing this, Shu Yulang became happy, rolled his eyes and said, but I don't have any alcohol. I have. Bai Shan got up immediately. Wait, I'll go get the wine. No matter it is Bai Shan, Bai Erlang, or Yin or, the three of them are not very good at drinking, but there will always be people who bring wine during New Year's and festivals, and there are occasional guests at home, so there is still wine. Bai Shan took a jar of wine and turned around to leave. After thinking about it, he turned back and hugged a jar. Zhou Man saw that he was silent for a while. It's not good to drink cold wine, I'll go to the stove to warm the wine. When the stove came up, Bai Shan opened the wine and poured it into the jug to heat it up. Zhou Man said again, it's not good to eat wine with an empty stomach. I'll go to the kitchen to find something. She went to the kitchen to rummage and found a few steamed buns. After thinking about it, she rummaged through the cupboard carefully. Sure enough, she found some snacks, so she packed them up and brought them to Shiro. Thursel Lang looked at a plate of steamed buns and a plate of dim sum, and was speechless for a while, even if it's a plate of fried beans. No, you will eat it? Thursday Lang poured himself a glass of wine, took a sip of the steamed bun first, and drank half of the wine. His eyes widened and sparkled. This wine is good. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3180. Yin or habitually got up early. He rubbed his hands and feet to get up as instructed by Zhou Man. After washing, he went out for a walk. Walking, and habitually going to Bai Shan's yard, they saw the two of them sitting on the stools in the yard, with some red marks on their faces. He went in curiously, what are you doing? The two of them looked up at him expressionlessly, their eyes dull, and it took a while before they said, oh, it's you, are you up? Yin or. He looked at the two of them carefully, and saw that they were wearing clothes, but they were still undercoats. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at No Evil. You just woke up? Why don't you dress and wash? Bai Shan yawned and put the cloak that fell on the ground on Zhou Man. Tears were coming down. Don't mention it, it's hard to say, let's go back to wash first, see you at breakfast. After that, he hugged Zhou Man back. Zhou Man also rushed to Yin or waved his hands tiredly, and dragged his body back to the house with Bai Shan. Yen-or watched them go back to the house, looked down at the wine glasses and jugs scattered on the table, then glanced at the 2 empty jars on the ground, and raised his eyebrows. They have a leisurely mood and drink in the evening. Chang Shao, who followed behind him, said, "Young master, Master Bai and the others don't smell much of alcohol." Yen-or looked at Mei, who was packing, and Mei said with a smile, "It's the 4th uncle who is drinking, and our master and wife will accompany you." They wanted to wait for Shizalang to go back to sleep when he was drunk. Who knew that Shizuo could drink so much, but he would never get drunk. In the end, the 2 of them couldn't hold it any longer and fell asleep on the table. Shiro drank until dawn, and then swayed. Shaking went back to sleep comfortably, but the 2 who had slept on their stomachs for half the night were numb in their hands and feet, and their expressions were numb. Why is it so good to drink late at night? 4th uncle can't sleep. The servants in the yard were not dead pigs, not to mention that Mei and Julan took Bai Jingxin to sleep in the front room, and Bai Shan and Zhou Man just woke up and went out. It's just a habit of playing small. Knowing that Bai Shan and Zhou Man don't like being followed by others, they didn't go out to check even though they woke up. It was only after she smelled the wine that Julan got up and listened to her orders, so Julan stayed up for half the night and just returned to the house and lay on her stomach. But Julan can rest, but Zhou Man and Bai Shan can't. The 2 washed their faces with cold water to feel refreshed, but when they had breakfast, their eyelids drooped again. Bai Erlang kept looking up at them. "I heard that you drank wine all night." Zhou Man said weakly, "Whose rumor did you listen to?" Wu Yu carried Bai Jingxing up, and the little thing immediately opened his arms when he saw his parents. Bai Shan reached out to take it, put her on his knees, and the servant immediately brought her custard up. Bai Shan took the spoon and dug the egg custard and fed it to her. This was the happiest time of Bai Jingxing's day, so she leaned on her father's arms very obediently, chewing the egg custard with her gums as soon as she entered the mouth. Bai Shan, however, was not in a hurry to feed her the next mouthful. Instead, he tapped her lips with a spoon and said, "Eat slowly and chew slowly, you know." Bai Jingxing kicked his short legs, clapped his little hands, and urged his father to feed her the next bite. Bai Shan scooped out half a spoon to feed her, and Bai Ruyu, who was opposite, held her hands together and looked at it seriously. Her eyes followed the spoon up and down, and her saliva flowed down unconsciously. Princess Mingda hurriedly wiped his small mouth with a handkerchief, and then he woke up and pointed at the bowl of egg custard. Mingda smiled and said, "You have already eaten." Bai Ruyu didn't listen. She stretched her hand over there, trying to grab the bowl. She almost threw herself on the table, so frightened Bai Erlang hurriedly reached out and hugged him. He patted his butt gently and said, "What's the matter? I almost couldn't hold you." Bai Ruyu kicked her legs, pointed at the egg custard and screamed. Bai Erlang touched his belly and said to Mingda, "I think he can still eat a little." Mingda, "No, it's a bowl every morning, and I have to drink milk." "Oh, give him a little more food. He definitely prefers complimentary food to milk." Mingda looked at Zhou Man. After thinking about it, Zhou Man nodded and said, "They have grown up a little bit, so it's okay to give them more food, but don't eat too much, be careful to accumulate food." Bai Erlang said happily, "Don't worry, it won't be much, I'll give him 2 spoons, so that he doesn't look at the eldest sister's gluttony." He said he gave 2 spoonfuls, and he ate the rest by himself. Yen-or, who was beside him, was speechless for a while. Is he wanting to eat it, or do you want to eat it? Of course he wants to eat it. There is no salt in this egg custard, and it has no taste at all. What is there to eat? Zhou Man looked up at him and said, "It's still delicious, otherwise you wouldn't have such a delicious meal." Shiro. This time even Mingda couldn't help but laugh. After feeding the 2 children, the Zheng family sent someone to pick up the children. The madam said that she would take the little lady and Xiao Lang to go out for a walk, and they won't go out at noon when the sun is too big. The older the child, the less sleep time, the more yearning for the outside world. Since Bai Shan and Zhou Man have developed the habit of taking them out every evening, as long as they are not sleeping and feeding, they will always find a way to go out. The Zheng family dotes on children very much, and is reluctant to let them make a fuss and act like a spoiled child. But these days, they wake up from naps earlier and earlier, and they always go out when the sun is at their highest. Zheng decided to change the travel time. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang handed them over to their servants to carry them down, and then they began to talk about business. Someone is coming from the capital. Zhou Man, who had been passively eating breakfast, looked at Yin Or, who was talking. Who is coming? Who is coming? Yin Or looked at Bai Shan and said, the salt administration reform. The imperial court has established a general salt transportation department, and now Bihai County has replaced Jiangnan as the largest salt producing area, so people from the salt transportation department want to come and have a look. Yin He said, my father wrote it on the letter to my family, and the official document of the imperial court should be arriving soon. The prince's letter arrived at Bihai County one step earlier than the official document from the imperial court. He clearly told Bai Shan that if the Salt Transport Division took over the salt field, then the operation of the salt field would be handed over to the Salt Transport Division. After Bai Shan read the letter, he threw it to Zhou Man, and then fell back on the bed. What can I do? The salt farm's money is now all invested on the dock. As for the arrangement, Bai Shan thought of something and got up quickly. By the way, Li Wei has to make arrangements. Is there enough money now to build a wharf? It's still a little bit worse, but it doesn't matter. The Salt Transport Division just said to see the situation and want to take over completely. I guess I have to wait for the Jiangnan matter to settle down. Who knows when? Maybe it will turn over this year and come another quarter. The official salt revenue will be enough for the construction of the wharf in the next few years. Bai Shan's abacus is very good, but he didn't expect that Jiangnan has changed a lot at this moment. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3181. As soon as Thursday Lang left Yangzhou on the front foot, Tang He arrived with someone on the back foot. In addition to the people from the Yashitai Dali Temple and the Ministry of Punishment, Tang He also brought 500 forbidden troops. Because there were too many people, they were stationed directly outside the city. With these 500 band troops, the assassins who appeared every once in a while disappeared in an instant. Tang He and Yang Hesha said, originally, we only brought 50 imperial guards with us. Your Majesty gave us a military talisman, thinking that if something happens, we can mobilize the local garrison. I didn't expect that we encountered 2 assassins along the way. After we wrote the letter, His Majesty directly asked the 500 imperial guards to rush over, and we arrived together. Regardless of the small number, 500 people are still carefully selected band troops, not to mention just the salt field. Even if the entire Yangzhou garrison turns against them, they are not afraid, not to mention that Tang He has a military talisman in his hand, and Yang Heshu is more direct. Soldiers' power. Tang He rolled up his sleeves and said, come on, tell me, where do we start? Yang Heshu smiled slightly and said, I know where they hid the official salt. Tang He raised his eyebrows and said with a thumbs up, on this point alone, they won't lose. Tang He and Sanbu have been seriously investigating for a period of time, and after checking some circumstances, on a quiet night in the moonlight, their people started working together and directly took the place where the official salt was hidden, including the officials in charge of the various salt farms. Hiding official salt, that is, embezzling official salt and using it as private salt, not to mention that Yang Heshu also found out the amount of fake official salt they traded a few years ago and embezzling the tax on ink and salt. Each one is enough to kill the head. The situation in the south of the Yangtze River is changing, but the news spreads very slowly, and Qingzhou still doesn't know anything. As autumn approached, more and more people came to buy salt. After Bai Shan asked about the origin of the people, he stayed in Qingzhou or introduced them to Shaoguan County. Near Leizhou, he recommended it to Leizhou. If it is closer to Dengzhou, he recommends going to Dengzhou. Of course, he won't let people go for nothing, wouldn't that ruin the reputation of Bihai County? So he always invited people from Leizhou and Dengzhou first, and let them bring their own salt by the way. As soon as the people who bought the salt arrived, he introduced them. As for how they traded and how they were pulled to Leizhou and Dengzhou, he didn't care. Bai Shan is so friendly, not only providing education and meeting, but also after sales, which really surprised the county magistrates in Leizhou and Dengzhou. Then the prefects of the two states couldn't help but say to the magistrate under his command, "It's no wonder that people have a bright future at a young age, and it is this kind of mind that is rare in the world." What can county magistrates do? Can only nod again and again, yes, yes. Zhou Lang followed Bai Shan to know a lot of people. He should have gone back to the capital a long time ago, and the speed by sea is much faster. If he grasps the time well, it would be enough to go to sea again a year ago. But after drinking that night, although he didn't lose sleep, he didn't plan to go back to Beijing. Instead, under the banner of protecting Zhou Man and Bai Shan, he started running between Longqi and Longqi in the county seat. At first, he planned to take people to guard the county town, but he followed Bai Shanzhou for 2 days, and found that they were not only accompanied by guards, but also accompanied by yeomen. He quietly got up several times at night, and found that there were guards guarding the night in the open and secret, so he felt relieved. This reassurance, he was unwilling to be lonely again, and ran to Longqi every few minutes to sell some of the goods in his hand. Secondly, he was looking at the shops over Longqi to buy something, and thirdly, for the sake of returning from the merchant buys something that he thinks will sell well. He ran up and down happily, and Bai Shan has recently been keen to lead officials who came to buy official salt to walk around. Longqi Wharf, one of the mainstays of the economy, is one of the most important concerns. He especially likes to recommend that buyers take the salt back on the official ship, which is not only fast but also safe. Suzhu came out, who followed him all the way in confusion, looked at the pier with a bewildered face. He was heading west. What sea route would he take? Do you want to take a boat to Kangzhou, Pingzhou, and then circle back to Suzhu from there? Thursday Lang got to know a lot of people behind Bai Shan. Although he didn't see any use for the time being, it was like he didn't understand why Bai Shan kept taking people to see his official Tianzhuangzi. You know, these are officials who buy official salt, not farmers. Chu Hulang bumped into his brother-in-law and said in a low voice, "You're wasting your time, and you're wasting a lot of money. I heard that you are keen to invite people to dinner. Bai Shandao, there are many pigs and chickens raised in Guantianzhuangzi. I have to find a good market in advance. Although the county can consume it now, the more the harvest will be, the more it will be harvested, and it will definitely not be consumed by then." He said, "Like Kizhu, several states in Yanzhou are close to our Qingzhou, if they are willing to buy these things from our county. Even if the salt field is taken over by the Salt Transport Division, his official Tianzhuangzi can still generate a lot of income and can do a lot of things. Thursday Lang, it's a pity that pigs and chickens are not easy to carry. Otherwise, I can take them out for you. If you sell them along the way, you will definitely make a lot of money. Castrated pigs and chickens do have better meat quality, and it is easier to grow meat for slaughter, which saves a lot of grain." Bai Shan put his hand on his shoulder and said with a smile, "Fourth brother, I actually think it's all right. I won't talk about chickens, but pigs can drive away like cows. Thursday Lang took his hand off. No, don't you fool me, can pigs and cows be the same? I only need to bring some grass or bean fodder in the car with the cow, and I can eat some grass on the road. And keep them alive. But pigs, if I don't feed them well, believe it or not, they can kill all the meat you've managed to raise when you get there. Thursday Lang said, eat pork depends on the fat, if the meat doesn't now, didn't I smash my hands? Bai Shan has never raised pigs, so he just watched the fun, so he didn't take this into consideration, and was dumbfounded. Then I can't sell my pork. It's not that much, said Thursday Lang after thinking about it. Didn't you say that Kizhu is close to Qingzhou? You sell it in Qingzhou first, and then slowly sell it to Kizhu. Do you raise so many pigs? Should the two states be able to consume it? Bai Shan slumped his shoulders and said, I think it's okay, but everyone is reluctant to eat meat, so what can you do if you don't buy me? Thura. Bai Shan sighed. Zhou Hulang hesitated. I remember that pork is cheaper than other meats. Rich people may not look down on pork, but their family background is average, even poor people don't buy it. Bai Shan, they don't know the beauty of pork, and they are reluctant to buy meat. When they really have to buy meat, they would rather choose chicken and mutton at a high price that will not make mistakes. Shiro touched his chin and said, then let them know the beauty of pork. Bai Shan thought for a while and raised his eyebrows at him. Chu Yulang smiled and said, let my sister-in-law make some meat dishes with pork and put them at the booth. Let them taste it, and they will naturally know the deliciousness of pork. See you tomorrow, good night. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3182. Zhou Man and Mingda were sitting in the kitchen with their children in their arms, constantly inhaling the aroma, and the saliva secreted sharply. The two children in their arms stared intently at the spoon in Xiao Qian's hand, and saliva flowed from the corners of their mouths. Mingda disliked it and wiped Bairuyu's saliva with a handkerchief. Why are you so greedy? Zhou Man and her daughter looked at sister-in-law's spoon without blinking, and said without looking back, like his father. When Xiao Qian heard the words, she turned her head and glared at her, and urged her, what are you doing in the kitchen on a hot day? When I'm done, I'll take it out for you to eat. Zhou Man inhaled the smell of meat floating over, shook his head and said, the kitchen is big, and it's not hot at all when we sit here. Mingden nodded, if it's hot, let someone bring a basin of ice. Oh, the oil in this pot is not necessarily worth an ice basin. It was not worth it to spend an ice basin in order to see her refining the oil. That's right, Xiao Qian was refining the oil, and the oil residue that was cut into pieces slowly floated up at this time. In the stove, only red-hot wood was simmering on a small fire. The oil in the big pot was bubbling, and the oil residue was getting more and more small, getting smaller and smaller. In the end it was only half a finger small. Mr. Qian picked up the oil residue, squeezed the oil and put it on a large plate. He quickly sprinkled a little salt on it, and the salt disappeared instantly when it touched the hot oil residue. Little Qian brought the plate over and put it on the table. The eyes of the two children followed and fell on the table, and it was Bai Jingxin who reacted first, reaching out to grab it. He was caught by Zhou Man's eyes and hands quickly. Don't be good at grasping, and you can't eat this, so I can eat it. The oil residue is super fragrant. Although it looks a little browned, it is really fragrant. Thinking that Mingda, who has always been a light diet and doesn't pay much attention to appetite, couldn't help but look at it again and again. After Zhou Man spoke, he said, can I eat it too? Zhou Man nodded again and again, if you can, you definitely can. His eyes were shining. Seeing that she was so greedy, Xiao Qian took a piece of chopsticks and stuffed it into her mouth. Bai Jingxin was waiting with her mouth open, but when she saw that her aunt actually gave the meat to the mother behind her instead of her, she immediately turned to look at Zhou Man, staring at her for a long time. seeing that she has no intention of sharing, she will cry as soon as her mouth is deflated. Jo Man's lips and teeth were fragrant, and she was too happy. Seeing that she was about to cry, she quickly turned her head and said to May, "Quick, quick, get the egg custard." In May, he brought 2 bowls of egg custard, and took over the 2 children with the palace maid. 4 adults and 2 children sat at a table, and the mother-child mother-daughter pair were still face to face. So Jo Man and Mingda ate a piece of oil residue, and the 2 children ate a piece of egg custard. Bai Ruyu ate it with relish, but Bai Jingxing did not. Although she didn't take a bite out of her, she was obsessed with the oil residue on the table and always wanted to reach out and grab it when adults weren't paying attention. Show her persistence. Xiao Jian defined, she is more naughty than De Bao. Jo Mandeo, this is called cleverness. She knows that the oil residue is more fragrant than egg custard and tastes better than egg custard. Mingda went to see the quiet Bai Ruyu, nodded and said, "Yes, eldest sister is smarter than Dabao." Although the 2 liked to eat, they didn't dare to eat too much. After eating a few pieces, they restrained their chopsticks and said, "Sister-in-law, is this going to be placed on the meat stall?" Xiao Jian responded, "There is still a lot of oil, which was sent after killing the pig this morning." She said, "I will refine it, and I will give them some oil residues to taste at the booth tomorrow, hoping to sell more." Jo Mandeo, steamed pork, meatballs, steamed pork ribs, and even stewed pork trotters are delicious. MRSGN, this is free for people to taste, just to let people outside know that our pork is of good quality, but we can't make a profit and shout at a loss. Jo Man, oil is expensive too. That's oil residue, I've made all the oil, Xiao Jian said, if you want to eat it, I'll go back and make it at home alone. Just as Jo Man was about to respond, Mingda reminded, "Man Bao, we managed to regain our normal body shape. If we eat like this, will we get fat again?" After thinking about it, Jo Man said confidently, "I just need to do one more set of punches before I get up in the morning and wash up in the evening." In order to eat, she can fight very hard. One of Xiao Jian's favorite things to do is to feed Man Bao, and he nodded again and again. The oil was a little colder, and MRSGN asked someone to bring the oil urn to hold the oil. Then she made a pot of noodles with the oil at the bottom of the pot and the noodles, and put some green vegetables and oil residue in it. Minda, who thought he was full, was actually hungry too. She touched her arm and really felt that she was a lot more rounded than before. Mingda is happy as long as she thinks of this, which shows that her body is better than before. The little Qian family filled the noodles and asked the servants to deliver it to the Zheng family, Bai Shan and Yin or them, and the 3 of them ate in the kitchen. The others were fine, but Yin or was the first to eat oil residue, so he didn't know him, so he didn't immediately put down his chopsticks. He picked up a piece of oil residue, looked up at Bai Shan and Bai Erlang, and saw that each of them was eating a bowl of noodles. He couldn't help but wonder, what kind of meat is this? This isn't meat, it's oil residue. Bai Shan paused and tilted his head to think, by the way, can you eat oil residue? Bai Erlang immediately raised his head and said vaguely while eating the noodles, I shouldn't eat it, give it to me. He pushed his bowl over, beckoning Yin or pushing over the oil residue. Yin or hesitated for a while, then carefully put it in his mouth and chewed. Shiro. Bai Shan looked at him and smiled, and asked, how is it delicious? Yin he frowned and nodded, it's quite fragrant, but a little rough, but it has a crispy feeling in the mouth, it's delicious. The main thing is that after he chewed it, the oil came out, but he didn't feel greasy, and he liked it very much. Bai Shan smiled and said, eat it if you like. Man Bao and the others ate it in the kitchen. Since they can let someone bring it, obviously you can eat it. Bai Erlang took back the bowl regretfully, turned his head and said to the servant, is there anything else? The oil residue fried by Mrs. Zhou is the best, and it is also good to eat it with salt as a snack. You can go to the kitchen and have a look, if there is any, get a plate. Bai Shan said, don't eat too much, be careful not to digest it. Turning his head, he instructed the servants, asked to see if there are any side dishes. The noodles are also delicious with the side dishes made by my sister-in-law. The next person walked away. When the servants left, the three of them ate slowly and said, in some places, the autumn harvest can begin. It is my duty as the county magistrate to ensure the autumn harvest. The people from the salt transport department are coming soon. Who of you will entertain me? Bai Erlang was silent, and Yin he said, let Bai Er go, he is the concubine, and it is the most suitable. Bai Shan thought so too, so he looked at Bai Erlang. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3183. Bai Erlang can only nod and agree, okay, then I want to eat steamed pork ribs at night. Bai Shan immediately said, I'll go and ask my sister-in-law to do it in a while. He looked at Yin Or again, there's Lao at the other end of the pier, please help me to keep an eye on it, and the situation in Jiangnan. Yin said it was fine. Bai Shan was delighted and asked, do you have anything you want to eat? Tell me, and I'll ask my sister-in-law to make it later. Yin Or smiled slightly and said, I prefer to eat the vermicelli in the stewed vermicelli with pork. It's been hot recently, and Bai Shan didn't want to eat too greasy food. He thought that he liked it, so he nodded and said, okay, I'll eat this at night. Bai Erlang, don't forget my steamed pork ribs. Don't worry, don't forget. Guantian Zhuangzi on the outskirts of the city slaughtered 2 pigs today, and they were cut into pieces. Every Guantian Zhuangzi who wanted to open a sickle for the autumn harvest was given a piece of meat. It's not very big, only about 10 kilograms, everyone can taste it, and the rest will be sold in the county. It's just that the butchers in the county town are fixed. Everyone prefers to eat mutton, and the pork is worse. There are already pork sellers. If they increase the amount of meat now, they will not be able to sell it. So Xiao Qian took a lot back. There are guards in the house, and there are guards of their own. There are many people, and the consumption is also large. Bai Shan ordered the menu, and she went to the kitchen and turned over all the ribs and meat she needed. In fact, MRSGN was also a little worried. Every Guantian Zhuangzi has raised so many pigs, and they are all sold to the county town. Can the county town eat them? And what about the other butchers? Bai Shan smiled and said, don't worry, sister-in-law, I have a solution. You can just help them let outsiders know that the pork in our village is delicious. Little Qian nodded, okay. Bai Shan thought for a while and then said, sister-in-law, how about you give them the oil residue tomorrow, and then make some steamed pork or something for them to taste. Are you going to lose money? Just divide it into small pieces. You just do it. I will pay for the money. Don't worry, maybe we can earn it back in the end. Although Xiao Qian didn't understand, he still did it. The next day, after the people in Zhuangzi killed the pigs and pulled the pork to the vegetable market, someone gave a large plate of reheated oil residue, which was fragrant and attracted many people who came to buy vegetables and meat in the morning. Some people gathered around to take a look and then hesitantly left, while others would ask, knowing that it was a free tasting, so they went up to eat a piece. The meat in the pork stall was all sold out, not like there was more left over yesterday. However, Mingda stopped the servant who came back to report and asked curiously, our pork is sold out, what about the meat from other pork stalls? They are all sold out. Even the mutton seller next door sold out their meat early. Today, I don't know why, many people are willing to buy meat with money. Mingda was surprised and said to Zhou Man, I thought we would take over the business of other meat stalls. Zhou Mandao, it will indeed happen over time. She said, even ordinary people still have money to buy meat occasionally. When they smell such a fragrant smell, they or their family members are greedy. It is normal to buy meat. But this kind of behavior is one thing, but it won't last long, Joe Man said. Unless they make a lot more money than before, they will be willing to spend money on meat for a long time. Mingda, but pigs are raised in every official farm, so selling so much meat is not a short-term thing. Yeah, and if you kill the pig, you will have to feed the piglets later. Joe Man smiled and said, but I have asked Bai Shan, his drunkenness is not on the common people in the vegetable market, at least not now. Who do you sell so much meat to? Of course, it's sold to those who can afford meat. Pork is cheaper than mutton and chicken. People who couldn't afford meat originally could afford it. After a few days, Mingden knew who these people Joe Man was talking about. According to Bai Shan's advice, Xiao Qian's family makes a pot of vegetables with pork every day and puts it on the stall for free tasting for those who are interested. Even Chai Zuolang, who was busy opening a shop in Longqi, heard about this, and Tet sent a message back, said that he asked the young people to help him carry official documents and letters to Longqi. Some of the dishes made by the eldest lady can be eaten when they are hot, otherwise they have to go out to eat there, which is too expensive. When Xiao Qian heard them going out to eat, he quickly asked, don't they live in another courtyard, why didn't they open fire? The Yaman paused for a moment and then whispered, the one who fired was because Lord Thursday disliked everyone's craftsmanship. Little Qian responded. Then, the restaurant on the other side of Longqi came to the door, and finally the restaurant on the side of the county couldn't bear it anymore, and they came over when they heard the movement. When Joe Man and Mingda came back from the hospital side by side, they saw a lot of people crowded at the door. The two were blocked outside, and the people in front didn't even know that the master was coming back, and were talking to the inside in a noisy way. Joe Man tried his toes to look inside, but he couldn't really see it. He only heard people saying please ask your wife for advice, please ask your eldest lady for advice and so on. It didn't sound like a bad thing, so Joe Man was not in a hurry to squeeze in. It was really impossible to squeeze in for a while, so she patted the shoulder of the person in front of her and asked curiously, what is this for, please, which wife from the county government office is it? Who else could there be? The person who was tapped on the shoulder by her said without looking back, who else can be called a wife in the backyard of the county government, besides Lord Joe's eldest sister-in-law? He said, there are only a few female relatives, the princess and Lord Joe need not say, Baixian magistrate Jiaotang can also be called a lady, isn't the rest the elder sister-in-law of Lord Joe? Joe Man nodded, feeling that his analysis made sense, so he asked curiously, what do you want to ask her to do? It's not us, it's them. The man followed Joe Man on tiptoe and looked forward, slightly lowering his voice, I can't hear Mrs. Joe's instructions on how to cook pork, I can't hear it clearly, anyway. It is said from the outside that the dishes she cooks are delicious, and the dishes made with pork are no worse than mutton, and the taste is also very good. It's cheap and good quality. Everyone came to the door, I'm here to join in the fun. He lowered his voice even lower, if I say they are taking advantage of the fact that Magistrate Bai is not in the city, Master Joe is in the medical office again. I can't take care of my home, so I blocked the door, and now if there is a person who can take charge in the backyard of the county government, they would not dare to block it like this. Joe Man raised his eyebrows and nodded. Mingda heard it and frowned, I'll have them drive them away. The person standing in front of Joe Man's side froze for a moment, and when he looked back, his eyes instantly widened, and only then did he realize that it was Joe Man who had been talking to him for a long time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3184. His smile froze, and he raised his hand to salute. Joe Man waved his hand and said with a smile, no need to be too polite. He shushes again, don't be loud. Then he pulled Mingda out a little bit to prevent her from being smoked. She leaned against the other wall in the alley and said to Mingda, "Don't worry, my sister-in-law is not someone who will suffer." Mingda, "But my sister-in-law is always gentle, I'm afraid she will suffer." Joe Man waved his hand confidently, "Don't worry, my sister-in-law will not suffer." She was sure, and Mingda could only wait and see. Although there were a lot of people and they were blocking the door and making noises, Xiao Qian's expression didn't change much. Zheng, who was still playing with the children in the yard, heard the movement and came over and was startled. He was held in the arms of the maid and coaxed. Bai Jingxing and Bai Ruyu were also attracted and watched with wide eyes. When Xiao Qian saw it, for fear that the two children would be frightened, he quickly waved to them and told them to take the children away. When she looked back and saw that they were still clamoring and talking, she couldn't help but say loudly, "Stop arguing." Everyone was shocked by her voice, and the scene was instantly silent. Only then did Mrs. show a little smile, but she was still more serious. "I heard, you want to buy pork with Zhuangzi. It's simple, you can go to Zhuangzi to find a steward, or I will invite Mr. Kui over later, and you can talk to Mr. Kui. Also." Everyone was quiet for a while and then said, "Mrs. Joe, this pork has a smell, although it is relatively mild, but the ingredients used are less, and the smell cannot be removed, but using those big ingredients, the price is higher." "At the same price, everyone definitely prefers mutton," the man continued, "but we have all tasted the dishes made by Mrs. Joe, although some dishes also use some seasonings, but not many, and some not at all, the price will be much cheaper." The other party smiled at Xiao Qian, and then stopped, hoping that she could understand what he had not said. Xiao Qian understands it. After all, she has not lived in vain for decades, but if you want to learn her dishes, you should continue to talk about it. Xiao Qian looked at them silently, everyone stared at them, and didn't speak for a long time. In the end, the little Qian family couldn't stand a group of big men chattering and dawdling, and simply asked, "Do you want to learn my dishes?" Everyone nodded again and hurriedly explained, "The dishes made with pork can only be sold if they are lower than those of mutton. If our restaurant has the craftsmanship of Mrs. Joe, many people will definitely buy the pork that is made, and maybe they will be able to wrap it by then. What about the pig production of the next Guantian Zhuangzi? Hey! How big is your restaurant? My restaurant doesn't dare to say that it will directly cover the output of a Guantian Zhuangzi, but I will buy it as much as possible. As long as our cooks can also make such dishes, I will definitely be in the future. It takes a lot of pork." Xiao Qian finally understood why Bai Shan said that the gifts were done well. Not only could they sell the pigs in the village, but they would not crowd out the butchers in the vegetable market. She might even have some income. However, before he left, he also warned that businessmen in this world have the same virtue as Shiro. They may be smeared with honey, but they take advantage of it, and they are not their own relatives. They will not only take advantage, but also deceive others, so let her not listen to what they have to say, and just think about what she can get in return for her own abilities. After thinking for a while, Xiao Qian said, "I can teach you, but I have the conditions." Everyone quickly laughed. You say. Xiao Qian said, "You may not know that my family also opened a restaurant." Everyone, "This is a bit embarrassing, comrade." Xiao Qian said, "But my restaurant is not here, but in the capital." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. "Although my restaurant is not here, after all, this is our ability to eat. We can't throw the bowl by ourselves, so you can let me teach you. What can you learn from me?" Everyone, the relatives of the county magistrate's family, and they want benefits, which is indeed beyond their expectations. After Bai Shan came to Bihai County, he never accepted more than usual etiquette. When the daughter of the county magistrate's family was full of money, those who gave too many gifts were sent back by Bai Shan, while other families, whoever handled wine during this time, followed the same ceremony as before, which shows his temperament. Character. Someone moved in their hearts and was thinking about whether this was an opportunity when they heard Xiao Qian say loudly, "I don't want to ask you more, because everyone has come to the door. I have taught this, and it is not good if I don't teach that, so each of you can look at and give a bundle of 300 to 500 texts." She said, "I've made a dish for you 3 times, and I've told it in detail 3 times. How much can I learn from each other's skills?" Someone immediately said, "What kind of money is 3 or 500 yuan? Mrs. Joe is too shabby for us. We are too embarrassed to take out such a good dish without 30 or 50 taels." When there are several nods in agreement, the others immediately should not be, and should not be. It shouldn't be, there is a suspicion of taking Xiao Qian's benefits in vain. I'm afraid they will offend the magistrate Bai and Lord Zhou. Just as he was hesitating, Mrs. Qian glared at the man and said loudly, "Don't hurt my man Bao and my brother-in-law." She said, "I know my own skills. Since you have eaten my dishes, you should also know that they are ordinary home-cooked dishes. Don't say that I teach you so many people at one time, just teach one, that dish recipe. It's not worth 30 or 50 taels." Xiao Qian looked at them with a wary expression. "Don't think about fooling me into accepting the money, and then sue my family man Bao and Bai Shan for accepting bribes." Everyone, "No, no, Mrs. Zhou, how dare we? Mrs. Qian, how dare you? That's what you think, but you just don't dare." Everyone, "No, no, we don't even think about it, it's too dirty." "Yes, yes, it's very dirty. I can read 300 or 500 articles very well." The people who proposed stopped the fire and lowered their heads regretfully, thinking that they could take this opportunity to have a somewhat different relationship with Lord Zhou, the magistrate of Bai County. Mrs. Qian settled on the details with them, and they went back and forth without fail. Because everyone was quiet a lot and Mrs. Qian's voice was loud, Mingda could hear it clearly outside. Mingda looked at Zhou Man in surprise. This was too unexpected for her. In her impression, Xiao Qian was a gentle and loving elder sister-in-law who cooked deliciously and took good care of others. But now, Zhou Man said happily, "I didn't expect it. My sister-in-law can do it." She said, "She is the eldest daughter-in-law of our old Zhou family. She is very capable. Usually my sister-in-law is good, but she is gentle, but if Liz Hong and the others do something wrong, she can take a stick and drive people out of the village. At the end of the village, if someone in the village came to quarrel with our family, my mother basically wouldn't do anything, and it was my elder sister-in-law who took my second sister-in-law to scold me back." Mingda, scold back. "Yeah, scold me back," Zhou Man said confidently, "but my sister-in-law has become more and more gentle in recent years, and I think I will be like this in the future. Although everyone says that I am pungent now, I will grow up when I grow up. I will definitely be as gentle and amiable as my mother and sister-in-law." Mingda twitched the corners of his mouth. "You really have confidence in yourself. See you tomorrow, good night." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3185. Zhou Man and Mingda just leaned against the wall and listened to the little Qian inside who solved everyone. When the shopkeepers and owners who came here turned around, they were startled to see Zhou Man and Mingda standing behind them, then immediately smiled and saluted, "Meet the princess and Lord Zhou." Mingda nodded slightly, and the shopkeepers and Zhou Man complimented, "Pork is popular in the county recently, and I heard that the most delicious one is Mrs. Zhou, so we have the cheek to ask for advice. Mrs. Zhou is worthy of being Mrs. Zhou's sister-in-law and has already agreed. Teach us." Zhou Man smiled lightly and said, "I was brought up by my sister-in-law. It should be my sister-in-law who deserves to be my sister-in-law." After everyone was stunned for a moment, they nodded their heads in agreement, and then all the good words for not wanting money were thrown at Xiao Qian. The little Qian Shi from the door came out, glanced at Zhou Man angrily, and pulled her and Mingda into the room together. Why don't you come in since you're back? The two children are clamoring to go out to play. Pull people in and send all the guests away. As soon as the door was closed, Zhou Man asked, Sister-in-law, have you agreed with them? Xiao Qian responded and said with a smile, it's all home-cooked dishes, but some dishes are not available here, so I'll teach them. It doesn't take much effort. Many people have been recruited to teach 500 characters, and they teach several at a time. One dish is only repeated 3 times. It is very simple for Xiao Qian, and the money is easy to earn. However, there are also reasons why the pigs have been castrated. The meat of the castrated pigs needs to be less flavorful, and it can be made delicious with less aniseed. Zhou Man nodded. Now all the people who raise barrows are from Guantian Zhuangzi, and there are not many farmers who are willing to castrate their pigs. After this time, there should be many people who are willing. Veterinarian Pan has been continuing the great career of capons in Bihai County, and his apprentice son Xian has developed the great career of capons, but both careers are still mainly for Guantian Zhuangzi, and most people in the village who raise pigs and chickens are reluctant to try. First, they do not believe that castrated pigs and chickens will grow faster and taste better. Second, they are worried about the death of castrated pigs and chickens. But nothing is a problem in the face of money. If there is, it must be that the income from buying and selling pigs and chickens is not enough to make people tempted. But this is not possible. Most of the pigs raised in the years ago and in the beginning of spring can be slaughtered. Guantian Zhuangzi is built next to the village, and they communicate with the local villagers. There are several large Guantian Zhuangzi, because there are many long-term workers living there, and they also form a large market with the nearby villages. So when the villagers saw someone going to Zhuangzi to catch pigs, the pigs were chased out. The pigs that had only been raised for 7 or 8 months were fatter and bigger than the ones they had raised for a year before. The pig was tied up, and several people weighed a large log together, and then counted the money. Seeing that the string of copper plates was stuffed into Zhuangzi's hands, all the villagers' onlookers were very excited. The thoughtful person couldn't help but ask, Steward, how do you raise Zhuangzi's pigs? Can't they eat white rice every day? How can they grow so fast? Yeah, that's growing too fast too. Guanxi said, like you, we are hunting hogweed. There are vegetables grown in Zhuangzi, and occasionally some bean flour is mixed in. Then how did it grow so fast? My pig is castrated, the steward said. Our adults have said long ago that castrated pigs grow faster, and so do chickens. If you don't believe me, go to the chickens raised in our village. Are the capons longer than a rooster? It's strange. With a disability, why is it easy to grow flesh? Is it also human? Then it depends on the father-in-law in the palace, right? In the county seat, there is a servant beside the princess. Seeing that their topic was getting more and more derailed, the steward hurriedly interrupted them and brought the topic back again. Don't you want to raise pigs? You can go to Guantian Zhuangzi on the outskirts of the county and ask, our piglets are all from the ones you get there are all castrated, the price is higher, and you can raise them when you get them back. He said, you are raising them now, and you can just kill and eat meat when you plant in the spring next year. How wonderful! Isn't that just in time for winter and spring? There wasn't much to eat then, wasn't it? The pigs eat a lot, I'm afraid I have to grow a lot of vegetables. And beans. That thing raises livestock, and the hair of cattle and horses is smooth and shiny, not to mention pigs. Everyone talked lively. It seems that raising pigs is difficult, but the next day, many people went to the county town to ask about the piglets. Veterinarian Pan, who had been free recently, became busy again, and hurried back to the county office to find Bai Shan. but Bai Shan went to the countryside and was not in the county office. Mr. Kui, who was in charge of the county government affairs with Wei Dong, thought about it and said, first, find the appropriate age piglets from the village below, or continue to send people to buy them from outside the county. He said, the sows raised in Zhuangzi will not be able to give birth until next year, and there will definitely be insufficient supply this year. Lieutenant Dong Xian stood aside and shook his head. Pork prices will definitely increase during the Chinese New Year this year. Guantian Zhuangzi can make a lot of money. I went out to eat today, and the customers in the store, 8 out of 10 tables ordered pork dishes. This was rare before. Mr. Kui said, now Guantian Zhuangzi is very profitable. We sell pigs outside every day, and each Zhuangzi will have an autumn harvest. When the autumn grains come down, it will be another sum of money. Even if they don't sell grain, they can still supply the salt works and the wharf, as well as the grain of their own village, at a much lower cost. Mr. Kui was calculating in his heart, but he didn't know that Bai Shan was standing on the edge of his Zhuangzi's field, watching the long worker put the cut rice ears in his palm. He weighed the weight, his eyes brightened. This year's new rice seeds are all planted. Most of the long-term workers used to cultivate the land. Anyone who has grown rice in the family can feel the difference between this plant and the previous one. However, the adults have never let them spread the word. After surrounding the rice, he asked excitedly, Sir, can we grow this rice in our hometown? Bai Shan clenched the ear of rice in his hand, looked at the golden rice field, and said word by word, it's definitely possible. Because it was about the grain, Bai Shan kept waiting for the results after the harvest, and didn't go home for 10 days. He wrote back to the county government and asked Zhou Man to send people to get in touch as far away as Lujiang County. Zhou Lizhong. All the new rice seeds in the first field were harvested, weighed once after threshing, and then called again after drying. Bai Shan wrote down the data and sealed it in the fold, and carefully selected a rice ear and fold at hand. Put them together in a box. He summoned Daji and said to him, send this box back to the capital yourself. Daji was surprised, Lord, the safety here. Just leave it to the Janissaries, Bai Shan said, now this is the more important thing, and salt is slightly inferior to it, not to mention that the dust has almost settled in Jiangnan, and no one will come to kill me. Bai Shan handed the box to him and said, take it back and give it to Sir, and he will send it to the palace. Daji can only take the box, bow his head and say, yes. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3186. The autumn harvest in Lujiang County is still before Bihai County. Zhou Lizhong brought back a lot of rice seeds the previous year. The purpose is to let the county magistrate promote it. A little is given to the villagers, and the rest is basically divided up by Master Bai. It was the uncle of the Jian family who started the sickle. He always felt that this year's rice was growing well, and he had been staring at it. When it turned yellow, he harvested it without a day's delay, and when he weighed the ear of rice in his hand, he felt that this year's harvest was excellent. After harvesting an acre, the ears of rice were not willing to stay in the fields to dry, so they bundled them home and threw them without weighing them. His eyes widened when he saw so many sacks. Uncle Qian didn't have time to wait for all the rice to be collected, so he ran to Qilai village. In the Yamen, there was a busy farm holiday, and the officials went home to harvest grain. Zhou Lizhong wore a straw hat and cut rice in the fields. His family opened a sickle today. Uncle Qian ran directly to the field and dragged the person out, and asked him, can we keep this new rice seed? Or do we need to buy new rice with you next year? Zhou Lizhong lifted his spirits and said, you don't need to buy it. You can keep the one you choose from yourself. I have tested it, and it is very stable. Grandpa, have you harvested it? How much can you harvest from 1 mu of land? Uncle Qian, it's raw rice now. I threw and weighed it today. There are more than 6 stone. He said, if it's dried, why are there 5 stones? It's more than double the previous permu yield. Uncle Qian held his hand tightly and said, Liz Hong, your family is lucky, your ancestral grave must be smoking green smoke, the new wheat seed was planted by your family in the past, and now a new one has been planted. Rice seeds. His eyes glowed, and he was really excited, so he couldn't help but slapped his thigh fiercely. It must be your uncle who is blessing you, no one in your family can do it except him. Hurry up, I have to go and give you a baby my uncle is going to incense. Oh, next year I want to plant all new rice seeds. His voice was too loud, and the villagers passing by laughed and asked, isn't this Uncle Man Bao? Why is he here now? Why are you so happy? Let us have a good time when you say it. Uncle Qian asked, didn't you plant the rice seeds that Liz Hong brought back this year? You said it's big, it's been planted 2 acres, don't say, that rice grows better than others. I don't know if it's because of the better water in the field, or because of the fertilizer, or because of the seeds. The villagers who heard it immediately said, the seeds must be good, you didn't realize that this year, the rice that is planted in the village is better than others. The village chief was still in the field 2 days ago. The same as the previous new wheat seed. Real or fake? Of course it's true. We've all been optimistic about several fields. The old rice ears are long and tall, and they're all planted with new rice seeds. You go and see the big heads field, hey, they all look like it's a bit higher than other people's houses, and the ears of rice are heavy. I knew that it was going to be replaced with new rice seeds, so I shouldn't have changed only 2 acres, I should have changed all of them. Uncle Qian said, I threw the grains today. The raw rice is nearly half an acre of 6 stones. As soon as these words came out, the villagers were stunned. Is it true? Man Bao, her uncle, don't you read it wrong? Am I wrong? I waited twice. That would be shocking. One person went around in circles, my family's is still a little bit worse. It's not as good as yellow. At least it will take 7 or 8 days to cut it. My family should be able to cut it, should I go and cut it? Forget it, I think it's still quite green. I'll leave it for 2 more days. The sun is good these 2 days. After drying it, it will turn yellow in a few days. Manbao's family planted rice seedlings early this year, should they be able to collect them now? Someone looked at Zhou Liz Hong. Zhou Li nodded in a daze, pointing at Tian Dao not far away, okay, I opened the sickle today, and it is being put away. My second uncle and third uncle are all in the ground. As soon as everyone heard it, they immediately said, anyway, there is nothing to do today, why don't we go and help? This is fine, let's go, let's help. Zhou Liz Hong stretched out his hand to stop him, how can you trouble the uncles? Oh, what's the trouble, the village should help each other, walk around, go back and get the sickle, it's still early today, we'll weigh it after the cut. Everyone rushed home to get the scythe, went to the field and greeted Tuesday and Wednesday, and went down to the field to open the scythe. Wednesday Lang was stunned for a moment, I just finished harvesting the beans, and the rice in their fields will be ripe in 2 days. Why don't you take a break and come to harvest the rice for us? On Tuesday, Lang also stood and watched, and after a while, he bent down to cut the rice. They want to weigh our rice. Let them be busy. Since they are free, they will cut all the yellow ones nearby. On Tuesday, Lang confidently took advantage of everyone. After the harvest, everyone helped to bring all the rice back to the old Zhou's yard. But threshing is impossible. This rice has not been dried, and it is not easy to thresh at all. Uncle Qian was just too impatient. He happened to collect another mu of rice, and he had a lot of people in his family, so he took people out of it. Uncle Qian is not in a hurry to go back, and while helping them spread the rice to dry, he said, you don't have to thresh the rice in a hurry, it's too raw and hard to thresh, I asked your second uncle and third uncle to help a little today, now you three. My uncle is still holding his hand and screaming in pain. Zhou Lishong nodded again and whispered, Grandpa, it's getting dark, you can stay here tonight. After thinking about it, Uncle Qian nodded, all right, I also want to ask you where this new rice seed came from, and if there are any other new seeds. No one knows better than Zhou Lishong where the seeds came from. He said, my aunt has divided some of the work fields in the capital and used them as experimental fields, especially for testing new seeds. Uncle Qian was surprised, so this new rice seed is. We planted it? Okay, Uncle Qian patted him on the shoulder and said, like us, no one has planted new rice seeds for a lifetime of planting, but you have planted them at a young age. Uncle Qian turned his head and said to Jojo and Jojo, this is your family's ancestral tomb with green smoke. Otherwise, it's all farming. Why can't they be planted? Whether it's wheat or rice, it grows in your family's field. He said, hurry up, before it gets dark, bring some food and burn incense for your uncle. Tuesday Lang, uncle, this is different from that wheat seed. I have seen their experimental field, and it is complicated. The rice has to be selected one by one, and it has to be marked. When it blooms, sometimes Lishong still has to go and seed the flowers himself, and some plots cannot be cross-planted, and they have to be separated. Anyway, it is complicated. He also planted the seed for many years. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3187. Uncle Qian insisted, can I grow the land? If God is not on your side, can we grow it? He said, I thought about it carefully, the ancestors in your family, your grandparents will not talk about it, and then go up, your great-grandfather and great-grandma are still capable, but there is no special achievement, I think they can. It's your uncle who asked God to help you. Since Man Bao is the reincarnation of a fairy, then maybe your uncle is also a god in the sky and came down to experience the calamity. Hurry up and pack up and worship, hurry up. Okay, although I don't quite believe Uncle Qian's assertion, who made him the uncle? And it's not a loss to pay my respects to my uncle, it's just a little tiring. After a hard day's work, Tuesday Lang and Wednesday Lang could only enter the kitchen. Who made the dishes tonight? Feng turned his head and said, what's wrong with what I did? After a pause on Tuesday, Lang said, it's nothing. I'll serve 2 bowls of rice. Is there any wine at home? The uncle said that he was going to pay his respects to the uncle, and he had to bring some wine. Feng Shi glanced outside, pointed to the almost black sky and asked, now? Yes, now, Zhou Lang urged her, hurry up, or it will be too late. Feng had no choice but to find a basket, put 2 bowls of rice for him, took the wine, and put the dishes on the stove into it. Seeing that, Tuesday Lang was busy and said, you don't need to bring vegetables. He turned his eyes with a guilty conscience and said, if you bring this dish, you have to bring it back. It's easy to get dirty when it's cold. Just bring wine and rice. Uncle won't mind. Wednesday Lang had already gone out for a walk and came back with a lot of fruit. These are all the fruits sent by Manbao and the others from the small village, and I will also take some for my uncle to taste. I think this is enough. On Tuesday, Lang nodded again and again, that's right, that's enough. The two picked up the baskets and hurried away. Uncle Qian watched the audience and couldn't help saying, your daughter-in-law has been married for so many years, and her craftsmanship is still not that good. On Tuesday, Lang Han smiled and said, Uncle, cooking is also a matter of talent. No one in our village is as skilled as sister-in-law. Uncle Qian became arrogant, that's right, she has been able to cook since she was a child, and when she can walk and talk, She will cook with her hands. She is better than others. Not so great. Tuesday Lang and Wednesday Lang looked at each other. Xiao Qian was their cousin before she became their sister-in-law, and they still knew that she went to the stove at the age of 6, but she was also 6 years old, right? When the three of them arrived in the ground, it was already completely dark. Fortunately, the three uncles and nephews had torches to light them. Uncle Qian lit 3 sticks of incense and placed them in front of the grave after bowing. Zhou Yin's tomb is very different. After he was named Mianzhou Shepherd, not only the imperial court has awarded him, but there are also some in Mianzhou and Lujiang County. Not many, mainly because I wanted to repair a monument of merit and tombstone for him, but there was no major repair at the beginning, and the old Zhou family just repaired it. Later, Zhou Man became an imperial physician and editor, and the village became famous for repairing the tomb. How could the old Zhou head accept the village's money and pay for it himself? He brought a few sons to build the tomb, and even the tomb of his parents next to him. It's built, so it's very different here now. Uncle Qian put in the incense, put a straw on his butt and sat down, pouring wine for Zhou Yin and his wife, and said, "Zhou Yin, I don't know if you still remember me, eldest brother. In the future, please bless me. Bao and your nephews, let them grow some new species." Uncle Qian is now full of new rice seeds. Except for this matter, he doesn't care about anything. On Tuesday, Lang didn't think much about it. After all, he knew that the rice was ready before planting it. Unlike other families, this rice seed was planted in the capital by their family. Of course, they could trust their own family, so he felt that this year's harvest would be good from beginning to end, not to mention that they have always looked after this place, of course. Already mentally prepared. He also poured a glass of wine for Zhou Yin and his wife, but he talked about Man Bao's recent situation. "Uncle, Man Bao has a daughter, and I don't know when I can bring it back to see you." Uncle Qian's attention was instantly diverted, and he asked, "How old is Man Bao's daughter?" "She's now a mother. Doesn't it affect her position as an official?" "Well, I don't know when I'll have time to come back and have a look." "Your aunt is also, I miss her a lot." Tuesday Lang, "Uncle, why don't you miss your brother and sister-in-law? What do you want them to do? They are already so old, and they are grandparents themselves," said Uncle Qian, who still asked one more question: "Does your eldest brother still farm the land in the capital? Or do you have other livelihoods?" He said, "It's impossible for a whole family to rely on Manbao to support each other, right? Even if the family helps each other, some things should be distinguished, otherwise the relationship will fade after a long time." Without waiting for the answer on Tuesday, Lang complained to Zhou Jin again, "Your father too, the daughters are married, why are you still in the capital and not coming back? With a few sons, I don't know how to be ashamed, and your mother is getting more and more confused. You know the persuasion, why don't you care now?" On Tuesday, Lang hurriedly said, "Manbao has a job field, and the eldest brother is taking care of the job field for her. I don't feel relieved that all the land is handed over to outsiders, and I also have to pay for labor, right? It's better to leave it to the eldest brother to take care of it. As for the fourth, not to mention, you know, he has been in business, and when there is no time to stop, the fifth and sixth also have errands and make money." "Uncle Qian, isn't that a lie?" "Of course not," said Tuesday Lang. "Why do we lie?" Uncle Qian sighed, nodded, and said, that's good, the smoke from your ancestral tombs, your little uncle came out first, and then there was a full treasure, and it was thanks to them, otherwise I'm afraid that if you enter the coffin, you will regret agreeing to your father and mother's marriage." Tuesday Lang and Wednesday Lang laughed awkwardly. After all, they were their own fathers, so they couldn't follow bad words. Uncle Qian patted his butt and stood up. "Okay, give your uncle and aunt another toast and we'll go back." "Yes." On the way back, Uncle Chien asked, has Datu stayed in the county like this? He frowned and said, although I'm very good here, I'm more or less an official, and I can borrow strength for anything at home, but after all, it's not good for husband and wife to be separated for too long. He said, I heard that my daughter-in-law is still from an official family, and now she is also an official, just like our man Bao. Yes, said Tuesday Lang, he is a student of our man Bao, who is now an official in the Taiyuan hospital. But don't worry, Man Bao and Bai Shan have arranged for him, saying that this new rice seed only needs to be planted. No problem, he can be transferred back to the capital immediately. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 3188. Uncle Chien nodded, but after falling asleep, he dragged Zhou Lizhong and said, it's not good for a husband and wife to be separated for a long time. Although it is promising to be an official here, the family can't be separated all the time. I heard that your wife is too an official. Zhou Lang, who was squatting in the yard to wash his face, paused, looked up at Uncle Chien, and frowned slightly. After eating too early, on Tuesday Lang insisted on sending Uncle Chien to the house. Uncle Chien said as he entered the door, there is still so much work in the field, I think you just want to be lazy, it's not that I don't know the way, you have to send me home. Lang Han smiled on Tuesday, stretched out his hand and pulled his eldest cousin aside and whispered, isn't my uncle's memory not very good recently? I found that he forgot what he said to him last night this morning. The eldest cousin said indifferently, when people get older, their memory is not good. Isn't this normal? It's not an important thing. He turns his head and forgets it now. If it's an important thing, he will bring it up again and again. Son, a few more words about your mouth. Tuesday Lang, no, I heard Man Bao say that forgetfulness is also a disease. You all say it's forgetfulness, so don't you have to be healthy to forget things? What's wrong with being healthy? On Tuesday, Lang was persuaded for a while, but he quickly reacted and grabbed his elder cousin's arm and said, no, Man Bao said it was a disease, this is a disease. Chien Dalan, then what should we do? Tuesday Lang, go to see the doctor. Chien Dalan stared, now. How long do we have to wait now? It just so happened that my uncle forgot about something today. Maybe it's a disease. I should be able to get the pulse now. But the farming is busy at the moment. Okay, let's go, but you have to go with me and tell my father that I don't mind taking a day off to send my father to see the doctor, but you think my father will go? Uncle Chien beat the two out with a broom. He was so annoyed that he said that he was not sick. If he was sick, would he still be able to go to the ground yesterday to help Lao Zhou's family collect so much rice? Chien Dalan was beaten in the face by the broom, covered his face and said to Tuesday Lang, it's all you, I haven't been beaten by my father for many years, and my grandson was watching from the side just now. Tuesday Lang, anyway, this is a disease. When the farming is over, you should find a way to take your uncle to the city to find a doctor. Okay, I got it. On Tuesday, Lang became worried, and when he went back from work at night, he said to Zhou Lizhong, tomorrow, thresh the rice in the yard, weigh it, and write to Man Bao. By the way, tell Man Bao that your grandfather has forgotten things a lot now. I remember she mentioned it before, this is a disease, you ask her if she has a good prescription, and come back and give it to your grandfather to drink. Zhou Lizhong was surprised, Grandpa is ill. Tuesday Lang nodded, it should be, it's a disease of forgetting things, anyway, you can understand it when you write so much. Zhou Lizhong nodded again and again, and the next day after threshing the rice, he wrote down the numbers and sent the letter. Their letters were sent by caravan, and they had to be sent to the capital first and then to Qingzhou. The caravan received the letter a little faster than the post, and arrived in the capital in less than 10 days. Mr. Zhuang had just received the box from Daji. The Zhou family tore down Zhou Lishong's letter, because it stated the permu yield of the new rice seeds there, so the Qian family sent someone to send a letter to Mr. Zhuang to make up his mind. After reading it, copy it, and hand it over to Daji, let someone send it to Qingzhou, you should stay in the capital first, and then leave when there is news in the palace. Daji responded, took the letter and exited. Mr. Zhuang looked at the book and the letter in front of him and pondered for a long time, but he still put away the box and got up, prepare the car and go to Wei Mansion. Daji personally drove Mr. Zhuang off. Mr. Zhuang stroked the box beside him, sighed when he got out of the car, and walked into the Wei residence with a smile. Wei Zhi's condition has improved a little recently, and he has started to go to court, but his health is not as good as before, so he has less government affairs, and still has a sick face. Speaking of Zhuangxi, Wei Zhibi paused, then put it down immediately, please. Although Wei Zhi had a good relationship with Bai Shan's Human, and had an old relationship with Mr. Zhuang, it was just because Zhuangsun was the attendant of the Chongguan Museum and a member of the East Palace, so Wei Zhi had little contact with him in private. Wei Zhi was surprised to hear that he came to the door. When he got the book in the box, he was even more surprised. Why don't you give such an important thing to the prince? Mr. Zhuang said with a smile, this is Bai Shan's book, the merit of Bai Shan and the Zhou family, but because they are not in the capital, they were transferred to the palace by the lower official. This is something for your majesty and the court. Wei Zhi understood, he was him, Bai Shan was Bai Shan, and the Zhou family was the Zhou family. Wei Zhi showed approval and hurriedly looked at the ears of rice in the box. At this time, the ears of rice had dried a lot, but the rice was very full. He carefully picked it up, the ears of rice hanging down were heavy. Wei Zhi was amazed, they actually planted it. Mr. Zhuang nodded with a smile. Although he was also surprised, he was not too surprised. The Zhou family has been doing this very carefully in recent years. Every year, Zhuangzi has mixed emotions when harvesting rice. Of disappointment. After spending so much time and energy, it is normal to gain something, but he did not expect that the gain would be so great. Wei Zhi read Bai Shan's book carefully twice, and said with bright eyes, the people are the foundation of the world, and food is the foundation of the people. If the new rice seeds are so high yielding, the world will change drastically. The yield per mu is 6 stones, and the previous yield per mu was less than 3 stones. Wei Zhi counted, feeling excited. Mr. Zhuang said, this is only the harvest of one of the fields. Before, when they were cultivating this rice seed in the working field, the yield per mu reached 7 stones. It was still sun-dried rice, and the weight on it was still raw rice. Wei Zhi was surprised, isn't that a reduction in production? Why is there such a big difference? Mr. Zhuang has heard them talk about cultivating rice seeds a lot in recent years, and he has also studied agricultural books himself, so he smiled. In different environments, different soil fertilizers, different rainfall, and even different sunlight, the yields will naturally not be the same. He said, in fact, as early as they were planted in various places, they started to be different, and then they will differentiate into different seeds, which is the same as the new wheat seeds more than 10 years ago. Mr. Zhuang said, up to now, new wheat seeds have been grown in various places, but they are already different from the first batch of new wheat seeds, and they are even more different from each other. For example, the wheat seeds in the north are more drought tolerant, and the wheat seeds in the south are more water loving. Now if you plant new wheat that has been grown in the south for more than 10 years, it will definitely be better than the wheat seeds that have been grown in the north. Big difference. Wei Zhi nodded, Mr. is right. He got up immediately, this matter is of great importance. I'll go to the palace to meet your majesty, Zhuangxi, let's talk about it together. There is one more chapter, but it will be very late, so everyone go to bed first and see it tomorrow.